Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Margot. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Looks like we got a couple of link issues this morning. So I'm sending people links over here. I guess Zoom is making it a little bit more challenging than it needs to be. So we'll be getting rolling in just a few minutes. Looking fresh over there, Margot. I like the blue suit.
Ready to learn this morning.
All right. Let's see here. All right, give me a second. Next Thursday is our boat day. You ready, Margot?
Yes, can't wait.
It's going to be fun.
I enjoyed it so much last year. I think this year it's going to be even better.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. We got a good group ready for the boat part, and then we're still getting more that are RSVPing for the main event after the boat. So it'll be a lot of fun. You're obviously welcome to invite any of the agents you want to RSVP for the main event.
I plan to send an email out to a bunch of people on Monday, reminding them.
Awesome. All right, we got a couple of panelists hopping on, guys. You can turn your videos on. There's Katrina. Good morning.
Good morning. How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. Good to see you again. How are you?
Doing fantastic. No complaints on my end. Just other than a little busy, I could use a little more sleep.
Hey, I think we can all sign up for that.
I know everybody feels me when I say that one.
Mike's still having issues, I guess, with his link. Good morning, Rich. If you can turn your video on, that way we can see you on the panel. Brandon's going to hop on in just a few minutes as well. Let's see. I don't know why Mike's having an issue here. Let me see if I can help him out.
On the Eventbrite link, there was not a link to join in, just so you know. It showed registered, it came back, but there was no link.
Yeah, it's weird. Usually they email you the link. Once you're registered, Eventbrite has an automated system that sends you the link.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fun. Let's try that. You just used the link that I just emailed you, Katrina?
Yeah, I sent it to him in that email thread that was going on.
Yeah, okay.
Because the other one wasn't coming through. I got the one you sent me, but I had just got it right before halftime.
Good times, good times. We got to fix that part.
I'm going to actually forward you that that Evite link or the Eventbrite just so you can see there's nothing in there. It says it's virtual and then you just can't get in.
All right, cool. I appreciate it. I'll take a look at it. Normally they send a separate attachment that is a button you can click on and then it pops up the Zoom link. But that's what I've seen on our past panels anyway. So if that's not working, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think it happened this time, unfortunately. I'm gonna forward this to you.
Okay. All right, guys. So we got Facebook Live is now working. So we're streaming and recording on there, of course, for people to rewatch. I think we have, oh, Rich was here, but I think we just missed him. So he'll be on the panel, I believe, in just a second. I know Brandon said he's logging in. But we got Katrina selling through relationships. We'll be diving into that and her branding strategies in just a few minutes. Let's give it one more minute here as I help out with Mike here. All right. All right, guys, let me do my little preamble here about Real Producers, and then I'm going to introduce you to a couple of our sponsors, and we'll dive in as people are still getting in here in the group. So there he is. What's going on? Good morning, Mike. Made it, buddy. Made it. All right. Let me go ahead and dive in with a little introduction. So those of you who might not know me, if you're on Facebook Live or will watch this recording or be hopping on here, I know if your video is not on, we can't see you. Zoom has a different attribute now that we can't even see your name on the screen. So if you're able to turn your video on, we'd love to have you, participate in the conversation. But if you just want to listen in, that's fine as well. Tampa Bay Real Producers is a platform that is designed to feature and connect the top 500 producers in the Tampa Bay market, which consists of Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, as well as Pasco County, which we integrated this year in 2021. So many of you probably already know that there are about 25,000 licensed real estate agents out there in the Tampa Bay market. Whether it's a good or bad thing, but the vast majority of them sell less than 5 homes a year. So our audience is really designed on trying to, impact and help add value to that top 500 producer level. An agent would have had to do about $11 million in volume last year to be in the top 500. They averaged 62 transactions per agent last year to be in that audience. And if you look at the total group, it represents over $13.5 billion in volume and over 44,000 total transactions. So if you're somebody who is in that audience, in the top 500, which you would know based on whether you're receiving the monthly Tampa Bay Real Producers magazine or not, we send the hard copy to the top 500 producers every month. If you are interested in wanting to get on the digital version of that issue, you can go ahead and email us. Or just send us a message on Facebook. Tampa Bay Real Producers is our page, and we can try to add you to the digital version. But we don't feature agents many times unless they're in that top 500 audience, and it gives you something to strive for. But this particular series called the Panel of Experts series, which we've been running on the second Thursday of each month, is really open for any agent to listen in on. To be able to, extract any sort of value propositions that you can from it. And as you've seen, we have different top producers as panelists on this series every single month. So today, our focus is going to be on how to build a dominant real estate brand. And we have a couple of people that have done just that and have built great brands and continue to do so in the Tampa Bay market. We'll be introducing them to you in just a few minutes. But I'm excited to dive into that topic. I've had a couple people request this topic in the past, and so I think it's in demand, and it's something that I'm sure we'll be able to take a lot from. Let me go ahead and just introduce Margot Ackerman with Home Team. Home Team is one of our sponsors that really makes this entire series possible. They've been a huge supporter of our platform in many different ways. And Margot and her husband, Jeff, really do an amazing job serving the Tampa Bay market, working with a lot of the agents that we have featured. And Margot, I want to give you an opportunity to say hello and anything you'd like to do to introduce yourself.
Thank you. This is amazing. And I'd like to thank all our friends out there who have from the real producers who have really supported us. And I want you to know that we really appreciate you and we love helping you grow your business. And I'm excited about the topic today because I think everybody can use a little help in branding, a little refresher, if you want to call it. And I'm looking forward to refreshing our brand.
Amen. That's always something that is good for all of us to be able to work on. Let me take a minute and introduce some of the panelists. And as we've talked about in the past, if you are someone who's joining us live and you have, whether that's questions through our chat or Q&A, or we dive into all kinds of questions here in a few minutes. And if there's something that you feel like you can add in value, don't hesitate to raise your hand. The beauty of Zoom is we have those little reaction buttons there at the bottom. So if you want to go ahead and raise your hand, I can try to call on you. I believe your video would have to be on in order for me to see that, I think. But if you would like to add some content and add some value, we would love to hear your opinion as well. But I have a couple people that have kind of raised their hand as specialists in this field. And let me introduce you Katrina Madewell. Katrina and I have met, man, I guess that was over 2 years ago already that I was on your radio show. It's amazing how time can fly. I know we did a feature on you a while back, and it's good to see your face again and have you join us this morning. Katrina is an author of the book Selling Through Relationships, as you can see with her background right there. So check out the book if you haven't already read it. Give her a nice review. She's also a radio host of the show called Tampa Home Talk, which I'm sure she'll bring up and we'll talk about as far as a way to help brand your business. She's been, a top producer for many, many years now. I want to say off the top of my head, consistently producing over $20 million a year. I think the last time that I looked at the numbers, which was recently, I want to say you were over 70 something transactions last year and right around that $20 million plus mark. Katrina would tell you probably more importantly that she has 4 amazing kids, been married for over 2 decades. So that's part of her brand right there, and how she's been able to develop balancing a great business with her personal side of things too. So she wrote down too that she has a future dream to start a nonprofit for down payment assistance. I love that. And I'm sure we can even dive into some of her philosophies on that as well. So Katrina, thank you for joining us this morning and glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to see your face, and I wish I could catch these every month. And sometimes we're kind of buried in our own muck, if you will.
I hear it. We're all busy people. I get that. And that's why we record them, so that you can go back if you ever want to and take some nuggets away. And that way you don't have to listen to everything too. You can just fast forward and steal a couple of golden gems, right? Let me go ahead and introduce you to a couple other people here that are going to share some thoughts. We have none other than Mr. Mike Constantine. Good morning, Mike. Mike.
Sorry, had to unmute. Good morning.
It's all good, man. Mike is with RE/MAX. He's a RE/MAX Hall of Fame inductee. His particular group is called the Advantage Group. I want to say well over $160 million plus in closed sales. Mike and I have met, recently. You're going to be seeing Mike coming out very shortly in one of our features. In fact, we're planning on having Mike, I believe, as our cover feature for our upcoming veterans issue. So excited to learn more about his story and his background. Mike is a veteran, has served on the United States Marine Corps for over 6 years. Has been successful, obviously, in the real estate space since for over a decade now in Tampa Bay, and has built a unique brand. If you want to kind of follow somebody who can be a very entertaining watch when it comes to just social media and videos, I would encourage you to watch Mike. Okay, he's got some really cool video series, and I think that's probably something we'll touch on here today as far as how he's developed a brand and in a niche for himself in that space. So Mike, thank you for being here today.
No, thanks for having me. We're looking forward to it.
No doubt, man. It's our pleasure. All right, there he is, my man, Rich Shelley. Good morning, Rich. You're muted, by the way, bud, just so you know.
There we go. Good morning, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking, Rich. It's always good to see you. Rich, as well as somebody who we have featured in the past as one of our team leader spotlights. Rich's story has always been fascinating to me, coming as somebody, if I remember correctly, and you can correct anything I screw up here, Rich, but your background as a truck driver, I believe, for years, and then a self-storage investor for years, and then deciding to kind of go down the path of residential real estate and developing a team. And the Shelley Group is one of the fastest growing and dynamic teams in all of Tampa Bay. I've met multiple people on Rich's team. I would describe them as loyal, passionate, and very diverse. Rich has done a great job of creating just a dynamic collaboration among his group. And we're going to dive into, I think, how he's developed a brand in a pretty short period of time here. So, Rich, we appreciate your leadership and what you've brought so far to our platform, and excited to hear more from you this morning. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you. I'm live from my mobile real estate office. We spend a lot of time there.
Technology.
Right?
All right. Well, Brandon's texting me that he's hopping in a few minutes, so we'll wait on Brandon. And many of you know Brandon Rhymes. I'll give him a more minute or two introduction once he's able to finally join us here. And Brandon will also be joining in with some thoughts today, this morning. But let's go ahead and dive right in to our main topic. And again, the topic here is how to build a dominant real estate brand. And so one of the things I always like to do to kind of kick off these panels for the panelists that we've introduced is to just give them an opportunity to kind of tell their story for, just a short version, obviously, for a minute or so. A lot of people I get feedback from who watch these panels tell me that, relating to people's stories, the good, the bad, and how they got started and what they've experienced in their journey. We can all relate to that because we're all in different moments sometimes when we watch these. There's people that are going to watch this series who are still kind of new and just trying to figure out, whether this is even the right industry for them potentially, figure out what their brand is going to be. And then obviously we have a lot of people who already are top producers that can still relate to the different, cycles that we all go through in the business. And so I want to give each one of you just an opportunity to give a more detailed version, if you'd like, than I just introduced, of your story from soup to nuts. And then in that story, if you would like to just mention, since we're talking and focusing on branding, when did you realize that, trying to establish a specific brand was important in the business? Was there a certain moment that stood out to you? Was it just something that you kind of always know naturally, or was there anything you can point to that said, all right, I know that I have a particular brand that I want to try to build, and this is why it's important to me? And somewhere along the journey, that story started to develop. So we're going to let you guys share a couple thoughts, and then we'll move on to some other questions as well. Just one other framework here. If there's a particular question that we throw out that, someone else goes into some detail about, and you don't feel like there's anything that you necessarily want to add, there's no obligation, obviously. You can just say, hey, we don't have anything else to add, and we'll just keep moving through to be able to get as much content out as we can, and we can allow the conversation to go in whatever direction we want. So let's start with you, Katrina.
So it's interesting that you featured me on this panel for branding, because as you mentioned, I've been in this space for 3 decades. I started when I was very young on the mortgage side of the business. Before I was even 18, I worked in a mortgage office, cold calling, which I talk a little bit about in my book. And it's the subtitle, which is a little bit hard to see, is Selling Through Relationships, Why Cold Calling Sucks and Relationships Win. And so if I could add to your month, for me, when I think about branding initially for so many years, it was really about my reputation, and it was my reputation with my customers. And so I started out in a mortgage office cold calling, and I just suddenly realized as I was young and I started developing relationships naturally with people that was not, the cold calling was not the direction that I wanted to go. So I really didn't think of myself as having a brand outside of relationships until Tampa Home Talk started about 10 years ago. So, you may remember from before Brandon and I started radio at the same time, we got approached by a group that's no longer around, and they had obviously done their homework on, people that were producing, like you do your homework on who you're going to feature in the magazines. So people that were active had been selling a lot and that sort of stuff. And they basically invited us to show us how to launch in the radio space. And Ron Quintero, God rest his soul, when he first approached me, I said, I'm not going to do radio. I'm a real estate agent. This market's hard enough right now, because mind you, Brandon and I both started a radio show during the housing market crash. So, airtime is not free, it's not cheap, and it's very expensive. So with that being said, just the mere starting of the logo and what the name of the show was going to be, all of those things played a part in who the brand would be. And I think probably we'll chat about this a little bit later, and it's evolved. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but the brand for me, if you will, really started around the time Tampa Home Talk launched 9 years ago.
Sorry, I was muted as well. I was going to ask you that in terms of what year it was that you launched that brand. So it was about 9 years ago now, huh?
Yeah, in I think October or August is my radio anniversary. Brandon was bold and he jumped right in. He started about a month before me. He's not gun shy at all. I had to be a little bit more organized and methodical and planned out. He was just like, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to fail forward no matter what happens.
Beat you to the punch that month early, huh?
I let him have it because I figured I could learn from him.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure he made plenty of mistakes that you also learned from too. So that's a good thing.
It's funny. My first year of radio was wiped out because I changed stations. We both started in, on a Clear Channel station in iHeart, and eventually moved away from that station into other networks. And so when we left, this is the things no one tells you, but like they owned all of our content, because they basically put it on the podcast and we didn't own it anymore. It was gone. So, in changing stations a couple of times, and I'm sure Brandon would say the same thing, we realized that we wanted to own our content. So we do that now going forward. But certainly if you were to go back and listen to some of our early radio programs, it would be funny. Like we could probably make a bloopers reel of it.
Awesome. That would be fascinating to create a little bit of a collage of some of those early ones and compare it to where you guys are at today. So just a thought. Rich, let's go to you, man. Let's hear a little bit more about your story and how branding's played a role.
Okay. Well, I can tell you when I got my license, the first thing I did was go to Men's Warehouse and buy a bunch of suits, and so I'm in a 55 plus market. That's our primary. So we do open houses 7 days a week. Nobody ever gets the home they want when they move to our community because the inventory is so low. So they ride around on a golf cart looking for that next one. And they usually find it at our open house, and then it's a sell by, like about 80% of our transactions are. And 3 weeks doing open houses 7 days a week, and I just wasn't hitting it off with people. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to break out the black jeans, my best pair of cowboy boots, and be rich. And I tell you what, it's been an unbelievable what's happened since then. And my niche was just wearing cowboy boots, and they saw me out there 7 days a week. So everybody knows Rich Shelley just because I'm out there every day, And later on, when we started a team, we knew the importance of branding. So we went and had the most unique real estate signs made that you could, you won't see signs like ours anywhere else. They stick out like a sore thumb. And when you see our signs all over a street, it just leads to the next listing. So, my agents, we have one that's a basketball coach. So his niche is the coach, and all his pictures have him spinning a basketball on his finger. And we have 15 bilingual agents on our team. So everybody has their own little niche, and it sets them apart. And branding is huge, no doubt.
It's amazing what a good pair of cowboy boots will do for you, isn't it?
I'll wear out 3 pair a year. It's a sacrifice in Florida where it's 100 degrees all the time, but nobody, my team, nobody's ever seen me in tennis shoes.
No doubt. I went to a wedding in Oklahoma City and came back with a nice pair of cowboy boots. It's probably my favorite thing that I have right now as far as the shoe wears I have. So
I love it.
All right, Mike, let's hop over to you, bud. Appreciate you sharing, Rich.
Yeah, so it's similar to Katrina. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I got injured, had to have a couple surgeries, and was just trying to figure out what I was going to do. I got recruited, of all things, into the mortgage industry. And I got recruited by HSBC International, where a fellow Marine and a high school buddy of mine, his girlfriend was working there. And I ended up going from knowing nothing about numbers and mortgages to becoming a district manager and having hundreds of employees. And it worked out really well. And then the economic crash happened and I had to figure out, okay, what's next? And Fifth Third Bank and JP Morgan were coming to the state of Florida, and they were looking for somebody to open up their new builds. And so I became a new build manager, where I'd go in and teach the lobby personnel, the personal bankers and investment bankers and tellers and all that good stuff, how to run the lobbies. And then eventually, once they were all built out, they put me in as a local manager role. And it just wasn't a good fit. Corporate America was not a good fit for, for someone that's coming out of the military. When you say what you mean what you say. And they didn't really like that on conference calls too much. So parted ways and looked at what the next avenue was going to be. I opened up a commercial cleaning company, realized I really didn't want to do that. And after that point, just took my real estate license, passed it first time, and never looked back. So for me, I'm always into a challenge. When I first got my license, I had friends, family members saying, look around you, you'll never be able to compete on Highway 54. You've got agents that are, been in this for 20 and 30 years, and you'll never be able to get, where they're at. Well, within 2 or 3 years, I was surpassing all of their sales. And to me, that was like an incredible accomplishment. And that's the point, after about year 3, 4, when I was doing 80 to 100 transactions a year, is where I really wanted to go ahead and start my branding, because I do things different. I don't stay inside the box. You've seen my videos, and that has become kind of a big hit with my clients now, to where they're actually requesting me to do, different music videos or some sort of gimmick or whatever the case may be, whether it be Forrest Gump or riding a horse or singing a Bon Jovi song or something like that. And they now know me for that. I mean, I walk through Publix with my kids, and people recognize me from different videos, but for me, it's branding without having to really break the bank. I've done what a lot of the other agents have done, which is the billboards. I've done a little bit of radio. I've done podcasts. You can literally film on your cell phone a full-blown production video and make it look incredibly professional. And I get so much traction off of that. I get referrals from people in other countries now. That Forrest Gump one that I shared with you has gone to 7 different countries. And that one video has probably produced, I'd say probably between 80 and 90,000 in GCI, just from referrals from overseas, from one video. And so for me, that's the direction that I took my business. I've looked at what others do. I try to learn from others' mistakes as opposed to making those mistakes myself. And my branding and my brand has been a part of that. And when I first started, I did what nobody else wanted to do. And this is probably just the Marine in me being stubborn, but I went to all the underserved neighborhoods. I went into, the bad parts of town, or what were considered the bad parts of town, which, 10, 15 years ago, that was $30,000 homes, $50,000 homes that now are appraising at 180, 200. And it's crazy that they're doing that. But I would go and knock on those doors and just say, hey, if you're considering selling, I'm a lifelong Florida resident. I've been here for 45 years, my entire life. And I lived in North, South, and now Central Florida. And how can I help you? And I would just have conversations with people, because what a lot of realtors didn't get back then is that those people are working for the doctors, lawyers, attorneys' offices. So my business scaled up from a price point because I helped those that nobody else was marketing to at the time. And I ran into some really unique scenarios. But for me, you got to start, where you're comfortable. And I've always been kind of a blue collar guy, and that's where I wanted to start.
Cool, man. Appreciate you sharing. It's fascinating to hear, like, even just so far, different paths that the 3 of you guys have taken to be able to kind of promote that brand, whether that's through the radio platform, through video, through cowboy boots, whatever it takes to be able to get out there and kind of officially stamp your name on what it's going to be. let me go ahead and introduce Brandon, who's able to join us here. And Brandon, what we just did was just have everybody do a very brief kind of story of their career, just a minute or two on an overview of their path and the role that branding has played in that path. We're going to obviously dive into more detail about your philosophies and stuff on branding in a minute. But just, when did you realize that branding was actually important to you? Let me just quickly introduce Brandon for those of you who might not know him. Brandon is well known in the Tampa Bay market as the real estate quarterback, hosts a radio show called the Consumer Quarterback Show, which I also had the pleasure of being on a few years ago. I look forward to being on again sometime soon, Brandon, for sure. He's the owner of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. Brandon and I have a similar alumni background, as we both have attended the Tony Robbins School for Business Mastery. And that was just something that was a game changer for sure. I know Brandon and I have talked about that in the past. He's also the founder of the Business Growth Celebrity Academy, which I find fascinating. And Brandon, I would really say in many ways is a branding expert. So excited to hear his thoughts today on how he's built his brand. He would probably tell you that the most important things in his business and in his life are his family, of course. He's married to lovely Lindsay. His faith is also a big part. He's very open about his faith and the role that has played in his life and his business, volunteers and helps in many different charitable organizations. So Brandon, thank you for being here today, man. Excited to see you again and hear your thoughts.
Hey, my pleasure. And yeah, we definitely need to get you back on the program. It's been a little overdue.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I look forward to it. Absolutely. Our schedules are always kind of crazy, but we'll make it work one of these days.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and just share a little bit for the audience on, your story, what that path has looked like, and the role that you think branding has played and how that's developed.
Yeah, absolutely. So my career started early with my dad, like a lot of us work with your family, so I kind of remember the first time I got on a riding lawnmower, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And then my second thought was, wow, I think he's going to make me do this more than I want to, one of those things. So I cutting grass, changing locks with my dad growing up ever since I was 7 years old. That instilled the work ethic. Playing quarterback on our sports teams. We went to Pop Warner Super Bowl #1. We almost won the national championship when I was 10 years old, but we did win the state of Florida championship multiple times. So those wins as a young kid, instilled the leadership value as the quarterback on the team. And, really that type of thing led into a state championship game appearance my senior year in high school, which led me to University of South Florida. I played on the inaugural football team at USF. So the branding, when I heard, kind of came out, I went to the Ritz-Carlton. I had a quick stay as like a personal trainer and fitness manager at the Ritz-Carlton. So I learned the corporate, kind of like the other gentleman was saying, Michael, the corporate side. And I learned like the true meaning. If you've ever stayed at a Ritz-Carlton or even visited, it's my pleasure to serve you. Of course, let me show you where the restroom is. It's right this way, sir. You show the guest that way and you use that time as a time to create relationship with the guest. And so anyways, 9/11 happened. Boom, I'm out of that industry, right? I got into mortgages. My background is a broker, and then I worked for Argent Mortgage, one of the largest wholesale sides. So I learned mortgages inside and out from the bank's perspective, from the front line with working with the origination side with the client. So that gave me a good understanding of the real estate industry. And I said, hey, how can I get more vertical here? So I said, let me be the realtor because, I got all these mortgage brokers calling on realtors, et cetera. So that got me into real estate. And then, a lot of the talk was, hey, what's your brand? What's your unique selling proposition? So I said, well, what really resonates with me? It's like, wow, man, I could really see myself as the real estate quarterback. So that's kind of how the brand was developed. When I first started the show, it was the Real Estate Quarterback Show. And then I said, you know what, let me rebrand this into more of a consumer advocate type platform. So now that's why we rebranded to the Consumer Quarterback Show. And we bring on, local area, experts, business owners, CPAs, financial advisors, attorneys. And then every now and then we get, some celebrities on the program. I've had Grant Cardone on the show. If you know of him, I've had Tony Robbins' son, Jarek Robbins, FBI hostage negotiators. Every now and then you get, some pretty cool guests like that. So that's the branding side. And then of course, platinum MVP. I was always the MVP on my sports team. So that's why I branded my brokerage as MVP, as being the leader on the team. And again, the most valuable player on the teams. That really resonated with me. So yeah, looking forward to participating in the panel. Looks like a great lineup you've got here with some really awesome people. And I love the boat. I want to go for a ride on that boat whenever we get a chance.
Next Thursday, buddy. That's what we're going to be out on. So you're more than welcome to join us. Hey man, I think one of the things that is interesting when you hear Brandon's story is like, a lot of times just whatever your brand has got to be something that you can identify with, right? That you personally it's going to get those juices flowing for yourself. Brandon has a background as an athlete playing football. And so it obviously just makes sense. You heard Rich talk about the power of switching from the business suit, which really probably wasn't aligned with his identity, to just putting on a pair of cowboy boots. And wow, imagine, like, we all know it wasn't the magic of the cowboy boots. It was Rich tapping into his identity that made everything change, right? And so when you think about branding, so critical to just identify, like, what is it that makes you tick? Is it something related to sports? Is it just, is it humor? Is it comedy? Is it where are your passions and hobbies, and how can you integrate that into the brand that you want to try to build? I think we're starting to see a theme there across the board. So let me hear your guys' thoughts more though on your overall philosophies now when it comes to branding. And this is where we can dive in a little bit to, what caused some of you guys to go down the path of radio, and why that has been such a powerful medium, and how that has attracted, what you've tried to do on the branding side. You heard Mike talk about video and how that has been massive for him. Rich even mentioned the power of just having some pretty awesome like signage and again, making sure that the brand was aligned on all the, the graphic marketing pieces that are out there. So we don't have to go in any particular order, but I'm going to start with Brandon this time since he went last time. And if you want to share a little bit about just your overall philosophies on this stuff, Brandon, why you've chosen the mediums you've chosen, and also has that evolved over time, and what that's looked like over the years. So go ahead, Brandon. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was pretty neat. Katrina and I both kind of started similar paths back like 2013 area in the radio. We were recruited by a group called the Real Estate Radio Network, and they kind of gave us the overall format, and then we both kind of took it and made it our own and kind of changed it a little bit and tweaked it here and there. But the format has really worked well for us because right about that same time, of course, everybody was talking about social media content, and you've got to be in front of people, and you've got to be known, and you've got to grow your celebrity. So that's where, I launched the Business Growth Celebrity Academy, something that I'm still, it's kind of in process of working, but that's an idea where I'm teaching what I've done. I feel like I pretty much perfected the model in a sense where, of course, we're always looking to constantly grow and evolve and get better. So perfection is always a constant pursuit. But in a sense, I have on a local level created celebrity for myself. I get referrals from all types of different circles now. Real estate instructors are now referring me who I've never met. I don't know. And they just said, yeah, talk to Brandon Rhymes if you want to learn how to make money in real estate. So that's the idea. And, I think, so the branding side for me was really, it just clicked. When it clicked, it was like, wow, leadership. What are some important qualities in business? Leadership, doing what you say you're going to do, following through. And that's what I did my whole sports career. So the Real Estate Quarterback really resonated with me. It's a brand that I actually love. I embody. And it also is true in a sense where, when we're working with clients and they need a certain need that might be outside the box, maybe, an estate planning attorney, or they need a referral to this type of thing. It's kind of like I'm throwing the pass to a receiver, or, it has that sports metaphor in a sense as well. So the brand evolved a little bit like I talked about before, from the real estate quarterback to the consumer quarterback. So with our show models, the way we have, we somewhat monetize them, but we also look for other areas of that we can talk about, because, when you talk about real estate, it's like, yeah, that's great for an hour, but it's for my show, at least I'm on every day, weekdays at 4:00 drive time. So I've got, a lot of content to fill, and then Sundays on 102.5 The Bone. So I've got, a lot of hours to fill. So I said, hey, let me talk about more than real estate, because, you know, everybody out there is facing different things. So that's when the consumer quarterback brand was kind of rebranded, and it opened up my areas. So now I can talk about self-defense. I talk about health and nutrition. You know, we get into some of the, I interview psychologists and folks like that. So we have much more than just real estate on our show. And I think that was a really smart move for me. It really opened up my my reach and my you know, audience, to a sense where, you know, people tune in every day. They're like, wow, I might be talking about solar one day on the show, but the next day I'm talking to a sports psychologist. And then, you know, I'm talking about protecting your Second Amendment rights because of, you know, we know the government's coming after our guns. Like those types of things that are near and dear to me. So, you know, I try to, you know, stay true to that and the brand in a sense with those types of things.
Love it. Makes a lot of sense. And, you know, because obviously radio allows you in many ways to be able to tap into all of those different segments, I guess you would say, right? Because of the fact that your listeners are coming from all different areas that have different levels of interest. It would make sense why you'd have so many different types of speakers and guests on there that you can try to tap into to attract and widen that entire base, which ultimately I think we'd all agree in real estate, the more people you can have who are aware of you, I don't care what industry they're in, that's always a good thing.
Exactly.
The real estate game. So makes sense, Brandon. Awesome. Rich, you want to go next a little bit more about your overall philosophies when it comes to branding, and, you know, why or how you went down the path you did with creating and focusing as much on the diversity of the team, the signage that you mentioned, just anything related to your philosophies on branding that you think would be relevant.
Yeah, well, you know, us being in a 55 plus community, and overall, you know, out of the 300 homes we sold this year, over 200 of them have been seniors. It's a different type of people than millennials are. They're very loyal, family oriented. So almost all of our marketing is done with a picture of my wife and I with our dog, little 10-pound Maltipoo. We also use our great granddaughter, she's 3, in a lot of our stuff, you know, and it's just about letting people know that we're real, that they can trust us. This 55 plus market is very unique. The average time from when I sell somebody a home to when I resell their home is less than 3 years. So it's just a constant and repeat customer. As a matter of fact, for myself, it's 100% repeat and referral. And I don't work with buyers anymore. I got great agents that are working with the buyers. And we've just built everything around family. So the whole entire team, everybody understands that you have to be part of the family or we're just going to ask you to leave. So we have a brokerage and a team. So the really good agents are on my team. And if they don't fit in for some reason, then we move them over to a single agent with the brokerage. But we've just done really, really well with just showing people that we are real and just outworking everybody. It's not rocket science. I'd be in big trouble if it was. I haven't created anything really unique other than that just I'm Rich Shelley and I'm the one you want to work with, you know. And so whenever we do a listing, we'll take multiple agents to the listing with them and let them know the whole team is there to help them. And it just everything about the family thing has worked really, really well for us. And you know, we started a website and a huge Google AdWords campaign about 4 years ago, and it works really well on SEO. So the longer you're with it, the more it pushes up to the top. So people really identify with their website in the Tampa area. So that's been huge. We're producing 30 leads a day and converting about 10% of them, so close to it.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. I mean, obviously the family focus, I think it makes a lot of sense when you're specifically knowing your market. You mentioned the 55 and older, you know, community. I think that's a takeaway for people, is just exactly knowing what niche you want to serve. And then is your brand going to be attractive to that niche, right? Because if it's not, there's going to be a disconnect there. That's not going to make a lot of sense. And Rich has made sure that those things are very well aligned with the audience that he's serving. Thanks for your thoughts, Rich. You want to add some thoughts there, Mike, about your philosophies with branding and how that's evolved over time, and And I guess tell a little bit about like just the genesis of these videos that you've been building and how that has developed. I don't know if you've always been a comedian or not, but where did that all come from?
So my philosophy is very simple. I got into real estate. Everybody did the same thing. They all had the same business card with their glamour shot photo, and the websites all looked the same, and it was all WordPress drop down boxes. And I just didn't want to do that. I've always, tried to think outside the box, and you have to set yourself apart. Florida, I believe, is like in the top 2 of the most realtors per capita. And so nobody was doing things differently. Now, fortunately, I live in a household with my wife of over 20 years now. And locally, she got known as TikTok Jamie. We couldn't go anywhere without either people noticing me on the Forrest Gump video or her as TikTok Jamie. And then eventually I was going on appointments where people were like, you're TikTok Jamie's husband. I didn't like that. I wanted to be the real estate guy, And so I had to open up my horizons a little bit. I had a broker at the time that was really pushing me to do video because I have a very outgoing personality. I'll try anything. And so I did the first video, hired a production company. We did 5 more consequential videos after that. All of them are extremely different. And then I got my clients saying, hey, can I be a part of those? And so I was like, wow, I'm onto something right here, because the clients wanted to be in the videos. So most of my videos do have people that I've sold homes or purchased homes through me. And then when I got into doing the music video thing, everybody sounds good in the shower. So when you hear the lyrics being sung, that's my wife with a microphone while I'm standing in a glass shower singing it to get good acoustics. So I actually, I still sound terrible, but it's better than what we were getting before. And so I just want to have fun with it. And to me, our industry is stressful enough to where, to me, it's kind of like an escape where I can go in and I can have a lot of fun, incorporate the people that I care about, including my clients, into that fun. And then from that, it became word of mouth. And now everybody kind of wants to be a part of it. So I get people texting me saying, hey, when are you going to do this video? When are you going to do this parody? When are you going to try to do this? And from that, that's kind of morphed into doing podcasts and other things that I never thought that I would do. But thankfully, I had a really good coach in my wife that has kind of shown me the path of, video and opened up my horizons. I partnered up with some agents. There's some really good Facebook groups that are doing video and doing really obscure things for realtors, and it works. But the thing is, it doesn't work for everybody. I had a really good manager in corporate America that he was dominant, probably one of the best, including all the Marine Corps, platoon commanders that I worked for. This guy knew what he wanted. He was very direct. His employees loved him. Unbelievable individual. But he pulled me aside one day as soon as I started getting promoted. He goes, don't try to be like me. He goes, be yourself, and you're going to find your niche one day. And sure enough, it took me a while, but I found my niche in real estate. And then in the branding side of things, I just always want to be different. So I'm constantly looking for something that other people are not doing. And it's one of those things where imitation is the best form of flattery. I started out 6 years ago using a little cartoon image because I noticed that, all the billboards had the nice glamour shots of the good looking women and so on and so forth. So I'm like, nobody's going to look at me if I have the same thing. So I got a little cartoon image, and it worked because it was non-offensive. It was very soft, but I had to hire a company out of California to do it to make it not look like an emoji. And it worked really well. And now there's about 50 other realtors in Tampa Bay that are using that same, concept in their marketing and advertising. So now I got to think of what the next evolution will be. So yeah, my philosophy is just be different and always adapt.
I love that. Yeah, be different definitely is a good philosophy to go by when you're trying to get out into an industry that is wildly competitive. And as you mentioned, there's no shortage of realtors in all of Florida, never mind the Tampa Bay market in and of itself. So that's a good starting point to be able to build from. And again, I mean, who knew that you were so talented with your voice in the shower that would turn into a huge business opportunity? So that's a totally secret nugget right there.
Yeah, thank God there's no behind the scenes footage.
And I guess we really found the secret weapon to your success was the whole TikTok Jamie. I didn't even know that was part of the strategy there. So that answers a lot of the questions right there, Mike. Now it's all coming together. Let's go to Katrina. And I'm fascinated to hear a little bit more from you, Katrina, on just, obviously you've done not just the radio platform to build your brand, and that's a part of the philosophy you've adopted, but, you know, also on the author side, like I'd like to hear you kind of talk about, you know, why you went down that road of tying in your radio show with your books and what you want to do on that front. I know you've also mentioned that you have some intentions with the nonprofit side, and that may or may not have anything to do with your brand, but I think all of that can definitely all come together. So love to hear a little bit more about your philosophies.
So I think it will, in a nutshell. And Mike, I appreciate you singing, but I will stick to talk radio. I'll never be singing anything ever. So I can totally appreciate that.
Don't knock it till you try it.
Well, yeah, I know. I don't think you want to hear me sing. But so we've been going through this like evolution process, and I think it's that way for everyone, right? But for me, when I think about, like, I started on the mortgage side, I did that for 17 years. They overlapped for 4 years. And now for 18 years, I've sold real estate. And I started doing that because my experience was so bad. When I bought my house, I was like, we have to do better than this. And a lot of the agents that were referring me business had moved away. And so for the longest time, it was just me like doing my thing, grinding out some real estate. And so it was interesting that you opened up the call today with, oh, you've been a top producer for a long time. And for me, I just saw myself as doing my thing. And so, you know, obviously 3 decades into this, I'm not 25 anymore. So I've been trying to make this evolution more about the team. And since Tampa Home Talk kind of takes its own identity, I was always trying to like merge the two. And I think, you know, Brandon will agree that they blend right into each other, but they really are 2 separate identities. And so we've been going to more of like less about my face on a billboard or anything like that, and transitioning into the Madewell group. And so literally my production that you've seen the last several years was me and a showing agent and a little bit of support staff. So this year, about 4 months ago, I just hired my first actual agent, like to try to get out from doing buyers and only focus on sellers. And so now one of them is brand new, still in training, but we have just 3 agents right now. And we've already closed the same amount we closed last year. And that's just finding our groove through COVID and, you know, just being super selective about the right people. But my goal, you know, moving forward and kind of this evolution of the brand is really making it about the Madewell group and less about me. That's my vision for the future. And then to answer your question about the nonprofit, you know, I was messaging with Michael a little bit. One of my goals in life, outside from that nonprofit, is to teach people how to win with money. And so I know that when just like you said, you started knocking on the lower socioeconomic type neighborhoods. If you can teach someone that it is possible to own a home, the path to get there, and then teach them how to win with money and do what other people are not doing, that's where our down payment assistance that we have right now is broken. So my goal is really just, I have this whole thing in my head on how it will go. And so that'll be the path that I think I end up like, that'll be like my ultimate thing that I need to do in life while I'm here. But it's to teach people ultimately how to win with money, how to be successful, how to earn wealth, how to earn it and keep it. And then, you know, a lot of that starts with the basic home ownership. So I think a lot of realtors don't see that, right? They see it as starting out making a buck or helping people or whatever it is. But the one fundamental thing that's never left me is you truly can change someone's life when you help them obtain home ownership. And so I think the dots really started connecting when I had people, you know, sometimes in their 50s or 60s, literally buying their first house ever. They'd rented their whole life and now they own a home in their 50s and 60s when some people are retiring. And a common misconception is, oh, well, I can't get a 30-year loan. You know, the bank won't give me a 30-year note and I'll never be able to afford a 10 or a 15-year loan. Well, they can get a 30-year note. They don't have to outlive the mortgage. But it's really that foundational piece that when I look back, some of these people that we've served and we've helped, and, you know, like Michael was mentioned, or maybe it was you, Don, some of these properties were $25,000 and now they're $200,000. That's kind of the point. And like the time time value of money. And when you look at places like San Diego, and I know I've shared this with Brandon, I think Tampa is very much going to be that way, where if you don't already own, you're going to be priced out of the market entirely. So I think it's our duty as real estate agents to be good stewards of that basically that oh my gosh, that like that work of what we do for work. I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, be good stewards of that and help people really like obtain home ownership, because one day it might be out of their reach, you know? So that's kind of how that all ties in together. And it's not yet had its complete evolution, but it will.
Awesome. I do think it's very great point about just the importance of helping people, you know, understand the power, no matter what their age is, of that first home and the impact that that has overall on wealth and where that can take them to. It really is a life-changing opportunity. We all hear constantly that it's the biggest, you know, investment that anybody's going to make, right, in their life. Most of the time, it's their biggest asset over time that they're going to have in their life is their house. So tying in those wealth building principles with the books that you have, because ultimately that does tie into the idea of building the relationship side, which is really what your book behind you there is all about.
And Don, in the book, I talk about the 2-year millionaire plan. That's in one of my chapters towards the final part of the book. And that's how anyone can be a millionaire just through basic home ownership. And so I talk about the path, you know, to that, which will lead to one of my next books. But it's easier than most people think. You just have to change the way you look at money and change the way you look at home ownership and be willing to do things a little differently.
I hope that while you guys are hearing this too, is that there's really no one median or, you know, method that you want to pursue. We didn't really dive into yet as to like why Katrina and Brandon chose radio, other than, you know, they had a company that did approach them about it and recruited them into it, or why Katrina was driven by the book and wanted to go down there. And I know she's not the only one that's written a book that we've featured as well. You know, why Mike is a comedian and loves the videos and all of these different things. But there's more than one way to be able to you know, parrot your brand. And so we're going to dive into some of the steps, I think, to hopefully help people that maybe are a little confused as to what they should do first and how to be able to feel more confident in the direction of their brand in just a minute. But I've always found that people can learn a lot hearing people be vulnerable enough to talk about their challenges and when things always didn't go perfect. And so I'm assuming that whenever you decided to put on those cowboy boots, Rich, or open up your radio shows or do your first video, Mike, you know, it wasn't like, you know, all sunshines and rainbows and all of a sudden everything was ideal and you didn't have any other challenges anymore. And so if you are able to think about, you know, some of the biggest challenges that you've experienced regarding your journey, have there been times where you've kind of doubted the brand and whether it was the right one, you weren't getting the traction that you thought you were going to be getting at whatever moment? You know, those doubts I'm sure have seeped in at times. Maybe you made some big mistake when it comes to trying to get that brand out there and you realized pretty quickly you had to pivot or do something differently. Was there something that you learned from any of those mistakes or challenges that people can benefit from? No, in particular order, who'd like to go first?
I know I will share for myself, and Brandon, I know will chime in on this. We started when the market was crashing. So we had to go get sponsors in a market where people were cutting everything back. So I don't know that it gets much harder than that. Would you agree with that, Brandon?
Unmute myself there. So yeah, the challenging markets it's always, you know, a challenge. And one of the biggest, I was just talking to someone about the Business Growth Celebrity Academy. And I said, well, what's the number one complaint people have right now? Realtors have right now. And he said, saturation. I said, well, I think what you really mean is inventory, right? So inventory. So it's another, when you look at the market dynamics, you got to figure out like, what's the challenge that people are having and how do you solve that challenge? And, you know, for us, it's getting listings, and, you know, the show plays a major part for me.
Yeah, but again, we started doing radio when the market was crashing. I mean, right, Brandon?
Yep.
Nobody was starting a radio show when the market was crashing because people couldn't afford to do that. They were tightening their belts. I mean, everything in the market was a short sale. It was a very hard time. And it's like I started at the beginning of this particular interview, Don, radio is not cheap. It's not free. And it's expensive. And so you have to have sponsors to offset that. And so, you know, Brandon and I both had to write a check for that first month of airtime. And it was very painful, right? To write that check without
Oh, yeah.
sponsors. So
That's right.
to secure sponsors in that market was hard. And so I think that's the point of even the book, is it's the relationships we have with the sponsors that really they'll continue to support us, because, you know, at the end of the day, if we don't make it make sense for them and help their business, they're not going to want to continue to be a sponsor.
No doubt. Yeah. And I know not every agent would even have the thought process, and it's not right for every agent to even go out and open up a radio show right away.
No, and I don't recommend it. I would recommend doing a podcast first, because I don't know if those weren't really a thing, or they weren't big, or people didn't know about them, but podcasts weren't really a thing when we started doing radio. It's a lot more cost effective to start there than to just say I'm going to host a radio show.
Makes sense.
Don, I participate in masterminds across the country, and the one common denominator, and I hear this coming from Brandon, I hear it coming from Katrina and Rich as well, is you got to know what you don't know. And to me, it's all about who you surround yourself with. The biggest mistake that I made when I got into real estate is I surrounded myself with the wrong people, and people that didn't want to share, that didn't want to help. And these were some of the top agents that were, you know, in the brokerage that I was at the time. And I promised myself I would never, ever be that agent. Someone wants to reach out to me, I will gladly help you. I don't care what it is about. I'm not looking for compensation. But at the same time, as far as my sphere in the real estate world and in my personal life, I always live by the motto of I'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies, because it's much easier to bounce ideas off of the 4 people than 100 different opinions coming at you. But you have to really have trust and faith and know that those people know what they're talking about, and they are going to give you sometimes the advice you don't want to hear, because, you know, it's better to point with the thumb than the finger. And I had a hard time grasping that concept because I'm a very confident individual. I think that what I'm doing is right, but I didn't see the flaws. And so in learning how to point with the thumb, it made my brand so much better. And like we discussed earlier, it allowed me to get out of my comfort zone. I had done all the other marketing that I thought was going to be effective, and I wasn't getting the ROI that I needed. And so when I stepped out of my comfort box, and other people said that to me, they said, you should really go down this path because you have the personality that will fit for it. And I tried it, and it took off like wildfire. So at the end of the day, knowledge is power, and the people you surround yourself with, especially in this industry, and it doesn't matter the market. I used to sit back and say, well, if somebody's in California, it's not going to work here in Florida. If somebody's in Colorado or New York, it's not going to work here in Florida. And I've got friends that are on that $1 Million Listing New York show that I went to high school with, and I'd reach out and say, what are you doing? You know, help me understand what you're doing in your market, because usually the bigger cities are a step ahead of small town America and the smaller cities. And I learned a lot of what they're doing, how they're doing it, but it took morphing it into the small town feel, as opposed to using the, you know, big dollar budgets in order to go ahead and make it work for me anyway. So as far as that goes, yeah, knowledge and stepping out of your comfort zone, 100%.
Some great
Yeah,
points there,
Michael.
Mike. Sorry, go ahead, Rich.
No, you're right on with all of that. You got to surround yourself with great people. And, you know, when you first get into real estate, you don't know what to do. When you first become a team leader, you don't know what to do. It's super important that you participate in some kind of a training program to learn what you need to do. And the mastermind, like Michael, you know, I think we're in one together, Michael. And didn't we just go to the one in Arizona together?
I didn't go to one in Arizona, but I believe that we've been on mastermind calls, Zoom calls, or meetings before. Yeah. Same with Katrina.
it's super important. And the biggest challenge that I have as a team leader is convincing my agents to take control of the transaction right from the get-go. So, you know, they don't want to lose the customer, so they let the customer run the show, and then it ends up being a very challenging transaction for them. And a lot of times they fall apart if they don't go the way we know they need to go. So we we tell our agents to take control of their primary market, their neighborhood. That's the first thing I put my agents on. You know, we put them through a coaching program so they can learn everything they need, and then we start marketing their neighborhood for them. And own your own neighborhood is what we expect from all of our neighbors or all of our agents. And you know, once you get a couple listings in your own neighborhood, and you create a newsletter in your neighborhood, and you get everybody in there knowing who you are, you can own your own neighborhood. And very inexpensive marketing. You're just branding yourself as a neighborhood specialist. And you know, I think any agent can do that. We have community yard sales, and picking a charity has been very important for us. We do a lot of charity work. We do community yard sales where we give all the proceeds to local charities. We have a pet adoption place here that we do videos at, that is powerful. It just touches everybody, you know.
Thank you, Rich. Great stuff there. I wanted to recap a couple quick things. Both Rich and Mike mentioning surrounding yourself with the wrong people. That's probably been a common theme, I would say, on almost every panel of experts series that we've had. Like somehow one take or another, that idea has come up about that proximity is power, right? That's an old Tony Robbins line, Brandon. And the ability to make sure that so many times we can get very comfortable, you know, not getting out of our comfort zone, and allowing ourselves to just be surrounded by friends, family, and people we're used to that are not going to push us and not going to drive us. And that's not a way to be able to establish a brand or distinguish yourself as someone different in the market, as Mike has mentioned a couple different times now. And then I also jotted down the idea that I learned a long time ago in business, as a business principle, that the riches are in the niches. And, you know, Rich has mentioned a couple times, and by riches, I don't mean Rich Shelley, I mean the money, right? So the money is in having a niche that you can become a brand in. And it goes back to knowing your target market. And for Rich, he's mentioned a few times that 55 and older. He just mentioned a couple of other, you know, faith-based and church-related environments. So just, you know, knowing what that niche is going to truly be. Mike has a background as a veteran. I don't know if that's something that you've ever branded yourself as far as your marketing, Mike, you know, but I know for many, many people, they want to work with fellow veterans, right? They want to be affiliated with somebody who has served the country. That's a niche that is a certain audience that people are attracted to. And obviously Brandon, if anybody who wants to be in real estate and loves football, I mean, how can you not work with Brandon Rhymes? I mean, give me a break. So it all kind of comes together when you kind of know what your niche is really going to be. And I've seen, even from my perspective, a lot of agents just get a license and they just kind of like throw a lot of stuff at the wall and hope that something sticks. And they're very general, right, with their approach. And you heard Mike mention that was a mistake that he made, was that he was kind of doing a lot of different marketing. Thankfully, he was tracking a lot of that, going back to probably some of his backgrounds. Some people don't even do that effectively. And it allowed him to kind of narrow his focus onto the video side. But some really great takeaways there. Is there anything else you feel like that we might have missed that is a challenge, or anything you feel like you learned through the years in your branding that has been effective for you, or helped you kind of turn the corner in any way?
Don, something I'd like to kind of add in. I've heard you guys talking about Tony Robbins. I've been through his, you know, seminars and whatnot as well, and it's fantastic messaging. I also follow a gentleman by the name of David Goggins. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of David Goggins. Unbelievable individual. And he lives by a theory of don't negotiate with your own mind. And what that means is we all have that little voice in the back of our head saying, oh, that goal is too big. You'll never be able to do that. It's going to take too much time and effort. So for me, when I first set a goal and I remember my broker looking at me cross-eyed because I'd only sold, I think, 18 houses the year before, somewhere around there. I said, I want to sell 100. I said, I want to get to 100 houses next year. And the broker even had like doubt in their eyes. And I said, okay, well, this is how I think about it. And this is what I tell, members of my team that work for me. I run a really small team. There's only 2 buyer's agents, and I want to keep it small. But if Pasco County, Hernando, Hillsborough, Pinellas has well north of 1 million homes, I only want to sell 100. So by doing that, it made it a much smaller goal and much more attainable, as opposed to when you look at it, 100 houses, how am I going to do that? As soon as you take the obstacle out of your own mind and that little voice starts going away, you don't negotiate with your own mind anymore. You set yourself a goal, you run at it, and you accomplish it, but you have to make it something that's achievable, and you have to convince yourself that it's achievable first.
That is so true, Michael. I mean, the most important thing I ever did in my real estate career was set a goal to sell 100 houses in a year. I would have never done it if I hadn't set that goal. I would have let some of those little deals go by. But let me tell you, once you've sold 100 homes personally in a year, your real estate career has changed forever, because 4 or 5 years from now, 50 of those 100 people are going to sell by, and you're never going to look back after you have a year like that. So just a matter of, it's hard work, and that's where most people miss out. It's like, I'm up at 4 a.m., 6 days a week. I shut my phone off at 7 o'clock at night because I have to sleep. And if something falls apart at the end of the day, I can't sleep. So you have to set a schedule. You have to stick to it. You have to work this like it's a job. And that's where most people fail, I think.
Any other thoughts before we, I was also curious whether or not at any point over the years, you've had to change anything regarding the brand, like finding that things weren't really working the way you wanted them to work. Did that cause you to pivot or change in any way? Or if not, just has there been anything where you felt like there was, a need to, I guess what I'm asking is, like, how have you maintained the brand successfully for as long as you have, if there haven't been a change? Like, 'cause I'm sure it wasn't always, smooth sailing from the get-go. Does anybody have any thoughts on keys for the maintenance side and consistently making it feel fresh and not stale?
I think as your brand gets bigger, your network has to get bigger. And I've heard Katrina talking about, partnering with charities. I've gotten with a lot of veterans charities. Some of them have searched me out. So I work with, Quantum Leap Farms as often as I can, who helps PTSD veterans with equine therapy out in Odessa. Worked with the Wounded Warriors. There's a wheelchair division of that here locally. I try to partner up with as many different charities that align with my beliefs as I possibly can. And once again, as your brand gets bigger, your scope needs to get bigger as well, but you can never stop networking.
Yeah, the charitable side has been a big thing for us too, with like Work Done Charities and Children's Cancer Center and Canine Heroes, helping heroes. That's been a really cool thing, since we're kind of touching on charities. But yeah, as far as like the brand maintenance, I think it's something that will naturally evolve as you continue to grow the brand and see how different areas can you can kind of bring that brand into other areas. And then I want to go back to something Michael had said earlier too about just the perspective, with the 1 million houses and selling 100 out of those million. There's something about the human mind, the way it works. And, sometimes we're hard on ourselves too. Like if we put a post out and you only have like 5 likes or 6 likes or something. But, I was at a meeting in Dallas this last week. It was a mastermind meeting with Ryan Stewman and a hardcore closer. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him, but he's does some pretty cool stuff. But he was on stage and he said something to the effect that, if you did a post and you only got 6 likes, just think about that from a perspective of what if you just found out, there was a car full of friends or full of people that actually they died, 6 people actually died. That's different relevancy, right? Like it's kind of a little bit of a mortal type of a way to look at it. But, so I think the way that we perceive and we put the perspective in place really can either turn us off or turn us on in a sense.
Katrina
there's
said it there, change the way you look at things, and the things that you look at change. So our perceptions definitely make all the difference in the world. I also always remind myself, like, imagine how many people had to actually see that post just to get 6 to take the time to like it. There's
Right.
a lot more.
Exactly.
There's a lot more than 6 who actually saw it. It doesn't mean that only 6 people actually saw what you were doing, even though that might be the visual proof that we're looking for, right?
Right.
And on the flip side of the coin to that, Don, Brandon brought up a really good point as far as social media likes, because that's where people get that instant gratification saying that what I'm doing works. I follow just about every top agent that's in my immediate area. And what I've found is that over the course of social media becoming popular in the real estate world, which has been about a half decade to a decade now, they post a lot. And they have this belief of, I have to post 3, 4, 5 things a day. But I also like to look at the data from that, generally without them knowing, of course, but you can look at it, it's on social media. So what I found is that when they were first starting to post things every day, and they would say, here's an open house, I'm walking through it, look at this, it's got windows, it's got a door, fantastic. And then they would do 3, 4, the likes would go down, the amount of engagement would go down. And so I think in the world of real estate now, especially because we went through a virtual period where homes were being sold over the internet and Zoom and so on and so forth, it's not as much about the amount of content that you're putting out there, but it's the value of the content. Are you teaching people anything? Are they learning anything? Or is it just another tour through a house? So in terms of being different and setting yourself apart, I've listened to Brandon's show quite a bit. He does some really great stuff on there, and it sets him apart. And then in terms of video, my stuff sets it apart because you have to be different. I don't just walk through a house and explain the facts and features of the house. Anybody can do that. You have to be different and get people to physically engage in the content that you're sending out there.
I just want to know if you can come sing for my listings.
How did Doc Holliday say? Say when?
If you can't get Mike, maybe you can get TikTok Jamie. She might be available too. Who knows?
She is, yeah.
Let's kind of wrap up here in the last couple of minutes with giving some people some tangible steps on things that they should do or think about, or maybe exercises, not necessarily physical exercise, even though maybe that's part of the routine, but something specific that they can leave with some meat on the bone on here are some steps that I either have overlooked or maybe I've done but not done well, to be able to identify my brand, promote my brand, maintain a great brand, and as you just mentioned, Mike, grow the brand over time. What are some steps, if you were to outline some things that you would throw out there that would kind of help summarize our topic today?
Hey, Don, do you mind if I go first? Because I got to head down to the radio station here soon.
Yep.
So one of the things I would say to agents out there, people looking to grow a brand and start a brand, is first kind of do like a brain dump. Sometimes, again, like people, human beings, we're if we really think about it and we take our time, we want to be perfect with the way we write it down. Just brain dump it, just get it out. Talk to friends, talk to family members, get perspective from other people, other folks in the industry or outside of the industry, and ask them those questions, those open-ended questions like, hey, what do you think? How do you think I should brand? And then just kind of brain dump it all down so you get it out of your head and onto paper. And then focus on what resonates with you. Like, what's your background? Like, what would be a cool something to remember, something memorable. And I remember when I had a meeting with Billy Mays, the late Billy Mays, one time. I was trying to launch a product, and I had a meeting at his house. He said, the more that you can make a product, and it's a little bit different, of course, with what he was doing with the quick information selling online and the OxyClean type stuff. But I remember something that stuck out was keep it simple, and if it can be demonstrable. So if you have something that's demonstrable, kind of like Michael was saying, like getting to the point, being articulate about the way, and then creative and adding value. So figure out how, when you're designing your brand, you're designing your logo, you're picking your color scheme, all of that goes into it. And focus on what's going to resonate with the consumer. Like, why do they need it? Not why I want it. More in the mind of how does it deliver value to the end customer? And I think that'll serve you and your audience better.
Thanks, Brandon. And before you run, one of the last questions we're going to quickly do rapid fire is just where does your future vision take you? One thing you're excited about in your brand for the future, what comes to mind?
Yeah, I love that because, yeah, I was just talking about this last night. It's like, when you're self-employed, you don't just work the certain hours, right? And sometimes, like Rich said, hey, I'm up early. He's up earlier than I am. So I sometimes stay up later, work later than, so just last night, I was talking about this, is that I wanted to really take my, the Business Growth Celebrity Academy into other markets, teach other realtors in other markets across the country, how to grow the celebrity, how to grow their sphere of influence, how to have their show paid for through relationships, how to get awesome barters and things like that, which I've done, and potentially, getting on stages, doing coaching in other markets, to where, so the more that I can focus on being a great radio show host, growing the TV show brand, and continuing the consumer quarterback model, what I want to do is just continue to raise my status in not only the community in Tampa Bay, but also throughout Florida, and then create that Business Growth Celebrity Academy into other markets. So that's something I'm working on right now, and it involves a lot of internet marketing and funnels and things that I'm not good at. So I've got to find somebody to help me with that, and I've got a pretty good team that I'm starting to identify, starting to get in place. But I think that's kind of my key, my role, where if I can continue to grow my sphere, my celebrity, write my next book. My book's coming out, and my next book's coming out in just a couple of weeks, as soon as I finish the final editing or whatever, the final look at it. So that's my goal, is just to continue to work myself into that higher status position, and then grow the team through the Keller Williams models and things that we have to be able to have that expansion model. And so that's kind of where my head's at. So
awesome, man. Thank you. Appreciate your thoughts today for sure. I think it was very valuable.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Good to see you. And sorry, I got to get out a little bit earlier and head down to the studio. So appreciate it.
Take care, Brandon.
You got it.
Bye, guys.
Hey,
let's flush out a couple more steps, and we'll wrap up again with whatever excites you guys for your future vision this year and beyond. Let's see, Rich, you want to go next with steps? If you were to share anything additional that we haven't flushed out about a step-by-step process of identifying the brand, and where's the future vision take you guys?
Well, for me, for my agents, I don't think I can over impress how important it is to have your own newsletter. You can do a lot of things with the newsletter. You can put it on Facebook. You can put it in a door hanger and hang it on everybody's door in your neighborhood. You need to create a face, and people need to see it. And you start in your local community, and then once we have our agents dominating their community, then we pick another community for them to go out and start dominating. And you're the neighborhood specialist. It's such an easy, inexpensive step for a new agent to do, and it works. If you're not doing it, you're really missing out. For me, we just completed what we think is the largest real estate office in Hillsborough County, over 6,500 square feet. And we spent the last year and a half in this COVID mess having that thing remodeled and put together. So now I'm in a mobile real estate office right now, an RV, right? And we're fixing to upgrade it and wrap it in our Florida's First Choice Realty colors. And we're going to start having podcasts and training casts from the RV every day. And my whole life on Facebook has just been about just follow Rich and who he is and his success. And if you're real, people want to be part of it. And it's just been real simple for us. It's not rocket science, fortunately.
Thank you, buddy. Do you have a favorite newsletter, source or something that you give your agents to help them kind of create and make a newsletter?
No, I tried when I first started doing this way back. I tried using other people's. None of them work. None of those templates work. You need to take a Word document and do it the hard way. And so I have my 4-page newsletter written up, and I pass it on to my agents, and then all they got to do is update it, and it's pretty good, pretty simple for them. But it's just so powerful what you can do with the newsletter, specifically about your own community. So we'll have the South Fork Times, the Kings Point Chronicles, and it's just a matter of changing the header and the articles in each one every month or two. It's powerful. And so if you do a really nice 4-page one, it'll cost you $800 or $900 to have 1,000 or 5,000 of them printed at some place, right? They'll print them, they'll fold them for you. Well, all you got to do is go and get a handful of vendors to pay you $100 to put their coupon on the newsletter. Nobody's throwing away a newsletter with coupons on it. You ain't got coupons on that newsletter, it's going in the trash like all that other stuff, you know. But you put some coupons on there for a pizza or a haircut, and I guarantee you these people are going to have it on their refrigerator. And you know how real estate is. Tonight, nobody's selling a house. Tomorrow night, the wife getting a big fight and you're selling your house, you know, and you're on the refrigerator. So that's the goal.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, Rich. Good stuff. That makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Katrina, anything you want to add there with steps and then your future vision?
You know, I would like to tag on a little bit to what Rich said earlier. And again, where you started the conversation. And I know this particular feature that you're doing is on branding, but there's a lot of value in understanding that there's 25,000 agents in Tampa, right? And they might close 5 a month. And like Rich was saying, get some training. So I think about this because, you know, one of our first really great agents that we brought onto our team was licensed for over a year and didn't do 1 transaction. And our minimum expectations of them is that they'll close 3 transactions a month. And my goal is that we'll help them get there. Right? Like we want to make sure that they can make a solid 6 figures a year selling real estate on a team. So, you know, it's not for everybody, right? To create this big brand and all that, and you don't have to do it. But if you plug into a team, which is something I never really had the opportunity to, if that was available when I started, I probably would have just plugged into a model like mine, you know, where we do everything for you and you have a life and you can take a vacation and just spend time with people. So there's a lot of value in joining a team as well to take a lot of that stuff off, because I think the frustration, even for agents, right, that sell 1 house a year or 1 house a month or 12 a year is it's a lot more than the average, but it's not really enough. And it's still a lot of work, right? So you'll get all the calls. It's hard to take a vacation and that sort of stuff. So not everybody has to build a brand. You can always join a brand that you believe in. Like you said, if you were all about football, you know, maybe Brandon is a great match for you. You know, if you were a Marine, maybe Michael's an amazing match. You know, if you want to sell, you know, farm properties for 55 and up, Rich might be your guy, you know, but for me, it's just a little bit different. I'm about plugging into the network and helping the people I have. And again, my goal is to to teach a lot of people how to win with money and to create a lot of millionaires along the way and teach them what I never had access to growing up.
I love that, Katrina. Thank you. Such a great point too, because the vast majority of agents out there that are licensed are not going to go down the road of building their own dominant brand. It'd be better for them, instead of selling less than 5 homes a year, to hook up with a team that they can just get, even if they're only doing 1 or 2 a month, that doubles most people's production for the year.
Well, they can come to ours and come sell 30 or 40, you know, that's the reality. We're going to give them the opportunities to do that. And then they can still have a life and enjoy their kids. And like I say, everything else that you don't get to do if you end up selling too much real estate.
Love it. That's a great point. Thank you, Katrina. And Mike, you want to bring us home with some last steps and your future vision?
Yeah, sure. As far as helping someone build their brand, this is something I really enjoy doing. And it's basically 2 principles. 1, identify what you're good at. And more importantly, identify what you're not good at. And so once you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, that's where you find your path. That's where you find your comfort zone. And once that happens, the business just starts flowing in. It could be lead generation. It could be how do you approach a lead? A lot of people are not very good at speaking over the phone. They prefer doing more in-person type stuff. So identify that weakness, get good at talking over the phone, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then as far as the future vision of my brand, that's the best part about embracing change. I don't know. I look forward to it, because if the market changes, I have to change with it, and my brand is going to have to change with it. And so I know that there's safety in doing the same thing, because if it keeps working, do the same thing. I'm not a believer in that. I believe in evolution. You keep moving forward, you keep adapting to what the market is dictating, And the only common denominator that I would say with every single top performer that I ever speak with is knowledge. You never, ever stop learning. I'm probably one of, I don't know how many people that actually read all the real estate magazines that I get that come in the mail. The Florida Realtors, you learn a lot by reading the attorney section. The Ask the Attorney makes me better, makes me sharper at what I do. But then I'll go and I'll study something if I don't quite know what the meaning is as far as issues that may come up. I sit on the grievance committee for the local board, and I did that so I could learn more. And you never have to, you know, be your own limitation. You always want to continue getting better at your craft. So for me, I'm looking forward to the future, regardless what direction it goes. I love it.
Great stuff, man. I appreciate all of your guys' contributions. There was a lot of takeaways from this, and that's why it's recorded. So you can go back and rewatch it and steal some of these ideas just to kind of put a bow on it. I know we talked a lot about knowing your identity, making sure your brand is connected to that identity, so that's going to drive you emotionally and get you passionate about it. Knowing your market. Mike had mentioned multiple times being different, something that's going to separate you from the pack. I love Rich's concepts about newsletters and separating yourself that way. You know, find whatever medium is going to work for you, signs, videos, radio, podcasts, whatever that might be. Katrina's point on joining a team, another great takeaway for some of you that just need to kind of up your production and you're a little nervous about building your own brand and the amount of energy and time it might go in to try to promote that. Well, hook up with one that's already there, right? And try to build that from there. So guys, you added a lot of value today to the community. We appreciate your time, and you're all invited next week if you're able to make our summer soiree in Indian Rocks Beach. We're going to go out on the yacht. Not quite the one that I'm on right now, but it's actually bigger than the one I'm on right now. So it's going to be a lot of fun. 5 p.m. we leave the docks, and then we have a 6:30 to 9 after party at the Indian Rocks Harborside Marina. So if you're around, we'd love to have you guys be able to make it. But you guys have a great night, great day, I should say, great week. And thanks again for your contributions.
Thank you, Don. You're the man.
Bye, guys.
Bye.